The air inside that taxi was thick, like it carried all the years I had tried to forget. The city outside looked the same, but it did not feel like home anymore. Every light, every corner, every old church window whispered something I used to know. I told myself I was only coming back to settle some paperwork, a letter from my lawyer about the house. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. It had been 10 years since I last stood on that porch, and I swore I never would again. Yet there I was, holding my purse close, my heart beating slow and heavy. The closer we got, the more my breath began to shake when the taxi turned down Magnolia Street. The memories came flooding in. The cracked sidewalks where my son learned to ride his bike. The big oak tree out front that my husband promised to cut but never did. The little bakery at the corner, long gone now. It was like the world had kept spinning without me. "Ma'am," the driver said gently, "we're here." The car rolled to a stop, and there it was, my old house. My chest tightened. The porch light was still yellow, flickering like it always did. But everything else looked different. The roses I planted were gone, replaced by hard gray stones and sharp-edged plants that had no scent, no softness. I paid the driver but asked him to wait. "Just in case," I said. For a long second, I sat there, hand on the door handle, thinking maybe I should just let it go. But something stronger than fear pushed me out of that car. My shoes touched the driveway, and the night air hit my face like a memory that refused to fade. The hinges on the front gate creaked, the same sound that used to wake me in the middle of the night before the shouting began. And then, before I could take another step, the front door opened. He stood there, James, my husband, older now, broader round the waist. But his eyes were still the same, cold, controlling, calculating. Behind him stood a younger woman, maybe in her 30s. She had soft curls and nervous hands, the kind of woman who watched every move before she spoke. Her fingers rested on his arm like she needed to prove her place. James looked me over from head to toe, smirked, and said, "Well, look who finally came home." Then, almost too sweetly, "Welcome back." For half a heartbeat, I thought maybe he meant it. Then his hand came fast across my face. The sound was sharp, a crack that split the quiet air. My body jerked, and I stumbled back a step. For a moment, the world stopped moving. Then instinct took over. I turned. I walked. I survived. But I heard him say it again. That cold voice cutting through my thoughts. "You got what you deserved." My cheek burned. My eyes stung. But I would not cry for him. Not this time. The younger woman, she gasped. "James, please." Her voice shook like a leaf in the wind. He glared at her. "Stay out of this." That's when I saw it. The fear in her eyes. The same fear I used to carry every single day. I steadied myself, holding onto the railing. "This house," I said quietly, "was mine before it was ever yours." He laughed, dry and mean. "Not anymore. You left, remember? You walked away." He took a step forward, his shadow stretching across the porch light. "You don't belong here." I stared at him, seeing not the man I once loved, but the stranger he had become. The smell of his cologne, heavy and sharp, filled my lungs, dragging me back to nights I prayed for peace that never came. The younger woman whispered again, "Ma'am, you should go." "He isn't." But she stopped herself, eyes darting toward him, terrified, so I turned. My steps felt slow, but each one was a kind of freedom. The air outside was cold. The wind carried the faint hum of the streetlights and the distant sound of a barking dog. I opened the taxi door, my hand trembling only a little. The driver looked at me through the mirror. "Ma'am, you okay?" I touched my cheek, still stinging. "No," I said softly, "but I will be." He didn't ask anything more. We drove off, and I watched the house grow smaller in the window. The porch light flickered like a heartbeat, the same rhythm it had the night I left for good. In that reflection, I saw the younger woman again, standing behind the curtains, staring out. Her face pale, her mouth open like she wanted to say something. That look haunted me. It was the look of a woman trying to survive. As we pulled into downtown Atlanta, the driver asked, "Where to next?" "Peachtree," I said. "There's a small hotel near the church." He nodded. Inside my purse, tucked between my Bible and a photograph of my son, was an envelope, yellowed, thick, with the courthouse seal still unbroken. The original deed to that house, still in my name. What he didn't know, I whispered to myself, was that I had a lawyer waiting just down the street, and papers in my bag. That could change everything. At the hotel, I sat on the edge of the bed. The air smelled like bleach and old carpet, but it was quiet. My hands rested in my lap, still shaking a little. 10 years ago, I left that house because love had turned into survival. I packed my bags one night while he was sleeping, took the last $50 I had, and ran. I told myself it was for my son, so he would never see me broken. Now, sitting there alone, I thought about how much time I had lost, how much of myself I had buried just to keep breathing. The city lights glowed outside the window, orange and soft. Somewhere out there, my son was grown, married, living his own life far away. I wanted to call him, but I could not bring myself to. "Not yet," I whispered to myself. "You left pieces of yourself in that house, Loretta. Tonight, you came back to see what was left." And somewhere deep down, a voice I had not heard in years whispered back, "You already survived the worst. Now take back what is yours." I stood up, looked at my reflection in the window, and for the first time in years, I saw a woman who was not afraid. Because, baby, what came after that welcome back? That was when the truth began, and it burned. The cabin lights dimmed, soft and golden against the dark curve of the sky. I pressed my forehead to the cool glass and watched Houston disappear beneath me. Just a scatter of lights fading into black. My life, fading too. I'd left that city with nothing but a purse, a bruised heart, and the papers that proved the house was still mine. Somewhere between exhaustion and altitude, I whispered to myself, "Lord, just get me through tonight." A soft voice answered instead, "Honey, you look like you could use some water." I turned my head. The woman beside me had silver hair tucked under a blue scarf, and eyes that looked like they'd seen a lot but still believed in good. She handed me the bottle. "Thank you," I murmured. "You running from something, baby?" She asked, voice low and kind. "Running, walking, crawling depends on the day." She smiled. "You sound like my daughter when she left her husband. Came home with nothing but her purse and pride. Sometimes those are the only two things worth carrying." I felt my throat tighten. Pride and a purse. That was all I had left too. She introduced herself, Mrs. Lorraine Jacobs, retired nurse from Charlotte. Said she believed God seats people next to who they need most. I glanced at her hands, steady, soft, lined from years of caring for others. Maybe he knew I needed someone who didn't look at me like I broke myself, I whispered. "Maybe he knew you needed rest," she said. Somewhere between her kindness and the seatbelt sign, I realized how long it had been since anyone spoke to me without fear. When the plane landed, the sound of phones buzzing and seatbelts snapping filled the air. Lorraine turned to me. You got somewhere to go? I hesitated. Not exactly. I figured I'd find a place once I got there. You mean you don't have a home in Charlotte? Not anymore. I used to live there before. Before my husband. She didn't pause. Then you'll come with me. My guest room's empty. Ma'am, you don't even know me. She smiled. I don't need to. I just listen when God tells me to help one of his children. Tears threatened, but I blinked them away. Thank you, I whispered. We walked off that plane like two strangers holding the same pain in different ways. Outside the airport, cold air wrapped around us. Her car, a pearl-colored Cadillac, waited at the curb. A tall man in a driver's uniform opened the door. Evening, Miss Lorraine, he said. Evening, Harold. This here's Loretta. She'll be staying with us for a while. I slid into the back seat, the leather cool against my palms. As we drove through the quiet streets, she hummed a soft tune. Something about it tugged at me. It sounded familiar, like something my grandmother used to hum when I was little, but I couldn't quite place it. Her house stood near Myers Park, trees bending over the road like old guardians. Cicadas hummed in the dark, and the porch lights glowed like watchful eyes. You live here? I asked, staring at the wide brick steps and the tall oak doors. 40 years, she said proudly. My husband built this house with his hands. He's been gone 10 years, but his love's still here. You'll feel it. Inside, the air smelled like lavender and lemon polish. Family photos lined the hallway. Lorraine in nurse whites, a younger woman in graduation robes, a man in a military uniform. Harold carried my little bag upstairs. Lorraine showed me a guest room that felt like sunlight, cream curtains, a quilted bedspread, fresh lilies on the nightstand. You rest, she said. No thank yous tonight. Just sleep. When she closed the door, silence filled the room like peace for the first time in months. I sat on the bed and caught my reflection in the mirror. My face was tired, eyes swollen from crying, but there was something there I hadn't seen in a long time. Something alive. I lay down, still dressed, and whispered, God, if this is you giving me another chance, I won't waste it. The room was quiet except for the hum of the air vent and the night bugs outside. I closed my eyes, but before sleep took me, that tune Lorraine hummed replayed in my head. I knew that melody. I'd heard it once before, and that uneasy feeling crept in, the kind that makes your heart stir even when nothing's wrong yet. Because the man I ran from hadn't let go, and the woman who took me in had a connection to him I couldn't yet see. Morning sunlight poured through the curtains, like it was trying to chase away every shadow in that room. I blinked, unsure where I was, until I smelled coffee, rich, strong, the kind that fills a house with comfort. For the first time in years, I had slept through the night without waking up crying. But peace never stays long with me. It always knows how to find the door. I pulled on a borrowed robe and made my way downstairs. The floor creaked beneath my feet like it was whispering secrets. Lorraine stood in the kitchen, humming that same soft tune I had heard in the car. Her robe was blue, her hair neatly wrapped. The sunlight caught her profile as she poured 2 cups of coffee. Mornin', baby, she said without turning. You like sugar or cream? Black, I said, like my grandmother used to drink it. Well, she raised you right then. I smiled faintly. She'd probably say I lost my way somewhere. Lorraine handed me the cup. Sometimes you have to lose yourself to find who you really are. We sat at her kitchen table, the wood polished smooth enough to catch the reflection of the rising steam. So what brought you back to Charlotte? She asked softly. A letter, I said. My lawyer told me there was something about the house I used to live in, paperwork that needed fixing. Her brow furrowed, but her tone stayed kind. Your husband's still there. My stomach turned. He was. I went back to face him, thought I was ready, and I looked down at my cup. He said, "Welcome back." Then he hit me. The air went still. Lorraine reached across the table and laid her hand over mine. Her touch was warm, steady. "I am so sorry, Loretta. No man's hand should ever land where love's supposed to live." Her words broke something in me. I cried quietly, the kind of cry that doesn't make sound but empties the body of its strength. When I looked up again, my eyes drifted toward the living room. One wall was covered in framed photos, and one picture, halfway down the line, caught my eye, a young man in uniform standing beside a woman whose smile was proud and bright. "That's my son, Raymond," Lorraine said gently when she saw me looking. "He moved to Houston years ago. Haven't seen him in almost a decade." Houston? Something in my chest stirred like the air had just dropped 10 degrees. I stood and stepped closer to the frame. His name was written neatly in gold script. Raymond Ellis Jacobs. My breath caught. My knees nearly buckled. My husband's name was Raymond Jacobs too, I whispered. Lorraine turned slowly, confusion giving way to disbelief. "What did you say?" I swallowed hard. "My husband. His name was Raymond Jacobs." Silence filled the room. The clock on the wall ticked louder with every second. She whispered, "Lord have mercy." I wanted to wake up from that moment, but every sound, the ticking clock, the humming refrigerator, kept saying it was real. She sat down heavily in the chair across from me. "He told me he was married once," she said, voice trembling. "Said it ended ugly. Never gave me her name." My voice broke. "He ended it ugly. All right." She closed her eyes and exhaled like she was releasing years of denial. "He hurt you?" "Yes, ma'am." Her hand covered her mouth. "And I brought you under my roof, not even knowin'. I didn't mean to bring you pain," I said. "If you want me gone, I'll go." She shook her head slowly. "No. God doesn't make mistakes, even the ones that break our hearts. Maybe he brought you here so truth could finally breathe." Her words sank deep. Then she came closer and cupped my face in both hands. "He is still my son," she whispered, "but that does not excuse a thing." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. "Does he know where you are?" she asked. "No," I said softly, "but he will soon enough." She nodded again, steady this time. "Then we will be ready," double quotes "we," that single word wrapped around me like protection. Later that afternoon, Lorraine showed me the guest room closet. "You make yourself at home," she said gently. "I'll be in the garden if you need me." When she left, I sat on the bed and opened one of the photo albums stacked on the dresser. There he was again, Raymond, smiling, charming. The same smile that came before every bruise, every apology. But in one photo, something stopped me cold. He stood with a young woman who was not me. Her arm was looped through his, her grin wide and radiant. The note beneath it read, 3 years ago. 3 years ago, when I thought he was working out of town, my blood ran cold. He had never left. He had been living double. One foot in his mother's world and another in mine outside. The wind picked up. Through the open window, I heard Lorraine humming that same tune again, the one he used to hum after fights. Like nothing had happened. The sound twisted inside me. Half comfort, half warning. I folded my hands, closed my eyes, and whispered, "God, if this is the truth you're showing me, give me strength to face it." Because the woman who saved me was his mother, and the truth beneath her kindness would change us both forever. Lorraine didn't say a word for a long while. The morning light had softened, sliding across the kitchen floor like it was listening too. I sat there, that photograph trembling between my fingers. The one where my husband stood smiling beside a younger woman. Her son and my husband. The silence between us wasn't quiet anymore. It had weight. It pressed down on us both until I thought it might break the table in two. Finally, Lorraine spoke. Her voice barely steady. "Baby, what's your full name again?" "Monica Jacobs," I whispered. Her eyes fluttered shut. A tremor ran through her shoulders, small, but it told me everything. "Lord have mercy," she breathed. Tears blurred my sight. She reached across the table and wiped one away with a trembling thumb. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I swear on my soul, I didn't know who you were." I believed her. The truth sat plain in her eyes. Old eyes that had seen too much sorrow to fake another kind. "You said your son's name was Raymond Jacobs?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, my Ray Ray." I let out a shaky breath. "Mine too." The words hung there, to syllables that split our worlds apart. We sat in that heavy silence, the clock ticking loud enough to break a heart. Finally, she whispered, "I haven't seen my boy in almost 10 years. Not since he came back from Georgia and told me he was starting over." Starting over. I repeated softly. "That's what he told me too. Said he needed space." Lorraine's eyes filled. I thought he was finally settling down somewhere peaceful. I prayed he'd found a woman to love him right. I didn't know. Her voice cracked. "I didn't know either," I said quietly. "He made me believe I was the only one." She looked up, pain flickering behind her calm. "Did he hurt you, baby?" The question stole my breath. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She already knew. Lorraine closed her eyes, lips moving in silent prayer. Then she rose and walked to the window. "I raised him better than that," she whispered. "I swear I did." "Sometimes," I murmured, "the world raises boys faster than mamas can protect them." She turned, eyes red and wet. "You sound just like my sister used to. Always speaking truth, even when it hurts." I tried to smile. "It's the only way I know how." We stood in that kitchen, two women bound by one man's lies. Both broken, both blameless. "Come on," she said softly. "Let me make you some tea. You look worn clear through." "I don't think I could eat right now." "That's all right. My mama always said you can't cry and sip something warm at the same time. One's gotta give." She gave a faint chuckle, but her eyes stayed clouded. I watched her move, graceful, deliberate. That's when I noticed the scripture hanging above the counter. "The truth shall set you free." Freedom. It sounded like peace and pain all at once. She set the cup down in front of me. "Monica," she said gently, "what happened between you and my son?" I hesitated, then let the pieces spill. Not everything, just enough. How he could charm the air out of a room. How he promised me forever. How that forever turned into fear. How he'd whisper sweet things one night and slam doors the next. Lorraine's knuckles whitened against the table. She didn't interrupt, just listened. When I finished, she sat still for a long time. "My son always did talk to pretty," she said finally. "Could turn wrong into right with that silver tongue. His daddy left early, and maybe he learned that words could keep people from walking away. But I never thought he'd use them to hurt." Her shoulders sagged, her voice breaking. "He's been running from himself for years. I just didn't know he was dragging someone else with him." I looked at her, not as his mother, but as a woman. Her guilt was its own kind of wound, and in that moment, I couldn't hate her. We shared the same heartbreak in different shapes. She reached across again, squeezing my hand. You don't have to decide anything tonight. You're safe here. That's enough for now. I nodded, but the words came anyway. I have to face him, Lorraine. He has to see me standing. Her eyes widened. You sure, baby? You don't owe that man another minute of your breath. I know, I said quietly, but I owe myself the truth. She studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. Then we'll do it your way. But not tonight. Rest first. Tomorrow, we'll start fresh. When she turned back toward the sink, her voice softened. You remind me of myself when I was young. Too much fire in one heart. But that fire? It'll carry you out of the dark if you let it. I tried to smile. I'll let it. When the house fell quiet again, I stayed at the table, tracing the rim of my teacup. The photo lay beside me. Raymond, smiling like the world had forgiven him. Something in me shifted. Not anger, not pity, just resolve. Later that night, I stood by the window. The street light outside flickered, painting the yard in patches of gold. I hadn't been gone from him long, barely 3 weeks, but it already felt like another lifetime. Lorraine's words echoed in my head. You don't owe that man another minute of your breath. She was right. But tomorrow, I'd take that minute back anyway, and use it to end what he started. Because tomorrow, when I walked out that door, I wasn't going as the woman he broke. I was going as the woman who finally knew the truth, and the one who was ready to face what came next. The morning came quiet, too quiet. Even the birds seemed to whisper instead of sing. I stood at Lorraine's window, watching the street shimmer under the Carolina sun. My hands trembled as I buttoned my blouse, one slow press at a time. I hadn't worn this color since I left him, pale yellow. He always said it made me look too bright for my own good. Well, today I needed that brightness. Lorraine was already in the kitchen when I came down. She had a soft gospel humming under her breath, the same tune she'd hummed that first night. Coffee was brewing, biscuits in the oven. She looked up, her eyes gentle but searching. You sure about this, baby? She asked. I've run from his shadow long enough, I said. If I'm gonna move on, I need him to see what he lost. Lorraine studied me a moment, then nodded. All right then. But you won't walk into that alone. My car's gassed up. I'll take you. I wanted to protest, to say it was my battle, but something about the way she gripped her keys made me stop. It wasn't just my closure on the line. It was hers too. We drove in silence most of the way. The road to Raymond's place wound past tall oaks and brick houses that looked to calm. For what I was about to do, my palms stayed slick against my jeans. Every turn felt like one closer to a memory I'd tried to bury. Lorraine finally broke the silence. You ever notice how peace sounds different once you've lost it? I looked at her. What do you mean? She gave a small smile. When you still got peace, it's just quiet. But once it's gone, that quiet gets loud. You hear everything, even your own heart trying to find a way back. I swallowed hard. That's exactly how it feels. We pulled up outside a small brick house with white shutters, Raymond's new life. A newer car sat in the drive. The porch was swept clean. It looked like everything I once begged him to build with me. Lorraine turned off the engine but didn't move. You don't owe him no speech, Monica. Just your truth. Then you walk away. I nodded, heart hammering so loud I thought it might echo through the street. When I stepped out, the air hit hot against my face. I walked slow up that path, my heels crunching the gravel. My chest ached, but my spine stayed straight. The door opened before I even knocked. He stood there, Raymond, taller than I remembered, heavier too. His eyes widened, surprise flickering into something sharper. Monica? He said, almost disbelieving. Hey, Raymond, I said softly. You didn't expect me, did you? He blinked, his mouth twitching. What are you doing here? I came to return something that doesn't belong to me anymore, I said, holding up the thin gold ring he'd given me on our wedding day. And to tell you I'm done carrying your guilt. His jaw tightened. You got some nerve showing up like this. You left. I took a slow breath. You put me out, Raymond. Remember that. He flinched but recovered fast. You made me do it. You never listened. Lorraine's voice cut in before I could speak. Raymond Jacobs, she said, stepping up behind me. You best choose your words careful. You're standing in front of the woman who gave you life, and the woman you almost took it from. He froze, color draining from his face. Mama, what are you doing here? I found her, Ray, she said, steady. Or maybe God did. Either way, truth done caught up to you. He stared between us, his mother and his ex-wife, like the air had been punched out of him. You went digging in my past, he spat finally. I shook my head. I didn't have to dig. The truth was sitting at her kitchen table. Lorraine stepped forward. Boy, I raised you to protect, not destroy. What happened to that heart I prayed over every night? Raymond's lips quivered, but his eyes hardened. You don't know what she's done. Lorraine's hand shot up, firm and shaking. Enough. I don't need to know her sins to see yours. He looked at me, anger flashing. You trying to ruin me? No, I said, my voice steady now. I'm freeing myself. You kept me scared so long I forgot how my own name sounded. But today, I remembered. I stepped closer until we were eye to eye. You can keep your house. You can keep your lies. But you will not keep my peace. He looked away first. Lorraine exhaled, her face softening with a grief deeper than anger. Son, sometimes the Lord breaks what we build, because he sees the rot underneath. Raymond didn't answer. He just stared at the ground. The silence was thick, like the moment before a storm breaks. I turned toward the steps. Lorraine followed. We didn't need to say another word. But when we reached the car, I heard him call out behind me. Monica! I turned. His face was pale, eyes full of something that almost looked like regret. I never meant to hurt you like that, he said. I looked at him for a long time. You did it anyway. Then I got in the car and closed the door as we drove off. I didn't look back. The house grew smaller in the mirror until it vanished behind the trees. Lorraine reached over and squeezed my hand. You did it, baby. I nodded, staring out the window as the sunlight danced through the branches. No, Lorraine, we did. She smiled faintly. Maybe now both our hearts can start healing. The road stretched ahead, wide and glimmering. I felt lighter, though my eyes burned. Freedom didn't feel like joy yet, just air in lungs that had forgotten how to breathe. When we got back, Lorraine parked by the porch. The house looked softer now, like it had been waiting for peace to return. As I stepped out, she said quietly, You think he'll ever change? I paused, watching the clouds roll in slow. That's between him and God. I just know I finally let him handle it. She smiled. Then maybe that's enough. I walked to the porch, sat down, and let the wind brush my face. The world felt still, like a wound closing. For the first time in years, I wasn't running. I wasn't hiding. I was just breathing, and somewhere deep in that quiet, I heard my own voice whisper, You're free now, girl. Don't ever hand that over again. The crickets began to sing, soft and steady, like a benediction, and inside, Lorraine's gospel tune rose again, the same one she'd hummed when we met. Only this time, it didn't sound like sorrow, it sounded like grace. When I walked into that oak-paneled room at the lawyer's office, my heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. The air felt thick with tension, like everyone had been holding their breath for hours. Mrs. Langston's two daughters, Victoria and Elise, sat side by side in their tailored suits. The way they looked at me, you'd think I'd tracked mud across the marble floor. Their husbands leaned back in their chairs, smug and certain, like men who already knew what was coming. I took a quiet seat in the back, next to the big window that overlooked downtown Atlanta. I didn't even know why I was there. The lawyer had called me personally, saying Mrs. Langston had requested my presence. "It's important," he'd said. I smoothed my skirt and tried to steady my hands. "Lord," I whispered under my breath, "please let me make it through this without breaking down." The lawyer, a calm, gray-haired man with reading glasses perched low on his nose, cleared his throat. "Thank you all for coming. Before we begin, I'll remind everyone that this is the last will and testament of Mrs. Eleanor Langston, dated 3 months before her passing." Victoria smiled thinly. "Let's get on with it, please. Some of us have meetings to attend." The lawyer nodded and began reading. It started like every will I'd ever heard of. Mentions of charity donations, personal items passed to old friends, and sentimental gifts to longtime staff. But then his tone shifted slightly. "To my beloved caretaker and companion, Mrs. Martha Jennings." Every head in the room turned toward me. I froze. "I leave my property at 211 Willow Creek Drive, along with the land and all furnishings contained within. In addition, I leave a sum of $200,000 to be distributed from my personal account." The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Victoria shot up from her chair. "What? That's impossible. That house is part of the family estate." The lawyer raised a hand calmly. "Ma'am, everything is in order. Mrs. Langston made this change personally and insisted on it being legally witnessed and notarized." Elise's face turned red. "This woman was nothing but help. You can't just give her." I stood up before I even realized it. "Please," I said softly, my voice trembling. "I didn't ask for any of this. I just took care of her. She was like family to me." Victoria pointed a shaking finger at me. "You manipulated her. That's what you did. She was old and lonely, and you took advantage." The lawyer cut her off. "Mrs. Langston was of sound mind at the time of signing. I have medical certification to prove it. If any party contests the will, we can proceed to court." That shut them up, at least for the moment. I sat back down, staring at my hands. My mind was spinning. I hadn't known about any of this. The money, the house, none of it made sense. The lawyer continued reading. "To Victoria and Elise, my dear daughters, I leave my trust portfolio and remaining stocks, as well as my jewelry collection. But I hope you both remember that wealth means little without kindness." I swear the room got colder after that line. When it was over, everyone filed out in silence. Victoria and Elise didn't say a word to me as they left, but I could feel their anger like smoke filling the air. The lawyer closed his folder and turned toward me. "Mrs. Jennings, Mrs. Langston spoke very highly of you. She wanted to make sure you were cared for. She said you reminded her of the daughter she wished she'd raised." That broke me. I couldn't hold back the tears anymore. She said that?" I asked, voice shaking. He nodded with a soft smile. "Yes, and she told me to tell you something else, that you must never let guilt make you give away what's already been given in love." I left that office, clutching the envelope with the deed and the check like they might disappear if I let go. The cool air outside hit my face, and I took the deepest breath I'd had in months. But as I walked toward the curb, a black SUV rolled up beside me. The tinted window slid down, and I saw Victoria's face. Cold, sharp. "Enjoy it while you can," she said flatly. "Because trust me, you won't keep it for long." The SUV sped off before I could even reply. I stood there frozen, the papers clutched against my chest, the wind whipping around me. For the first time, I realized what this gift had really cost, that it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. And deep down, I could feel something shifting. Maybe this wasn't just about an inheritance. Maybe it was about justice. The kind that comes when life finally decides to give you back what's been stolen. I turned toward the setting sun, whispering to myself, "All right, Eleanor. I'll protect what you left me. I promise." Then I started walking, slow but steady, toward the bus stop. Not as someone's helper anymore, but as a woman who'd finally been seen. Finally been given a piece of her own story. But little did I know, the storm that family was about to stir up was just beginning. It had been 3 weeks since the will reading, and I was just beginning to breathe again. Every morning, I'd wake up in that big old house at Willow Creek, sunlight pouring through the lace curtains, and for a second, I'd forget that the Langstons hated me now. For a second, it felt like peace. I'd walk barefoot across the wooden floors, humming to myself while I brewed my coffee. And sometimes I'd even laugh thinking about how Mrs. Langston used to fuss at me for putting too much sugar in mine. "You'll rot your teeth before you ever get to enjoy your money," she'd tease. Lord, I missed her voice. But peace never lasts long when jealousy's got a key to your front gate. It started with small things. Footsteps on the gravel at night. My trash can tipped over. One morning, I found deep tire marks carved into the yard, like someone had circled the house more than once. I didn't have proof, but I knew in my gut who it was: Victoria, Elise, or someone they'd sent. I told the police about it, but they shrugged. "No real damage done, ma'am. Could have been kids," the officer said, handing me back the report with a half smile that didn't reach his eyes. I wanted to believe him, but my stomach wouldn't let me. Then came that night. The night everything burned. It was late, past midnight, when I woke up to the faint smell of smoke. At first, I thought maybe I'd left the oven on, but then I saw it. Orange flickers dancing against the window pane. I threw the covers off and ran to the hallway. Thick smoke rolled down from the ceiling like dark clouds. My chest tightened. The house, my house, was on fire. I covered my mouth with my robe sleeve and rushed toward the front door. But flames had already swallowed the living room curtains. The crackling was deafening, and the air was so hot it felt like it was peeling my skin. I turned back toward the kitchen, maybe the back door, but the smoke was too thick. I stumbled, coughing, my eyes watering so bad I could barely see. That's when I heard a voice, faint, trembling, echoing in my head, Mrs. Langston's voice. "Never let guilt make you give away what's already been given in love." Something inside me snapped back to life. I wasn't dying in this house. Not like this. I dropped to the floor and crawled, one arm over my mouth, praying every inch of the way. "Lord, just let me make it to that door." When I finally reached the kitchen, my hand touched the cool metal of the back handle. I twisted it, and it opened. I tumbled out into the night, gasping, falling onto the damp grass. My robe was singed, my hair smelled of smoke, and the world behind me was on fire. The flames roared through the windows, bursting glass like gunshots. I could only watch as everything, every picture, every letter, every piece of the life she left me, burned into the sky. Neighbors started running out of their houses, shouting, calling for help. Someone threw a blanket over me. Another man dialed 911. I sat there, rocking, my arms tight around myself, whispering, "It's gone. It's all gone." When the fire trucks finally arrived, it was too late. The roof had caved in, and all that was left were the brick bones of a house that once felt like home. A detective came by as the flames turned to smoke. He crouched beside me and spoke softly. "Ma'am, we'll need to investigate the cause." "You said you woke up to the smell of smoke." I nodded, eyes swollen from tears. "Yes, but I didn't like nothin'. I went to bed early." He looked toward the ruins, then back at me. "From what we can see so far, this wasn't an accident." My whole body went cold. "You mean someone said it?" He hesitated, then nodded. "We'll know for sure after the fire team finishes. But from where the flames started, the porch and the fuel marks near the gas line, it looks intentional." I didn't need him to say more. I already knew who. The next morning, I went to the motel near downtown Atlanta. I checked in under a fake name, Mary Collins, because I didn't want anyone finding me. I sat on that scratchy motel bed staring at the news report on the tiny TV screen. "Fire at Willow Creek Estate under investigation. Officials say signs of arson have been found." The property, owned by a woman named Martha Jennings, was recently inherited from the late philanthropist Eleanor Langston. The reporter kept talking, but I couldn't hear the rest. My ears were buzzing, my heart pounding like a drum. Someone had wanted me gone. They didn't just want the house back. They wanted to erase me. That's when I saw the text message come through on my phone, from an unknown number. "Now we're even. Stay out of what doesn't belong to you." No name, no signature, just that. I dropped the phone, my hands trembling. For a long time, I just sat there, staring at my reflection in the dark motel window. I looked like a ghost, but deep inside, beneath the fear and the grief, something fierce began to grow. They thought I was weak. They thought I'd crawl away and disappear. But they didn't know me. They didn't know the kind of woman who'd walked through fire, literally, and lived to tell it. I wiped my tears, stood up straight, and whispered to the empty room, "You burned my home, but not my spirit. I'm still here." I grabbed my purse, slid my phone inside, and looked up at my reflection one more time. "If you're listening right now," I said under my breath, the way I used to talk to Mrs. Langston when she was gone, "please like, subscribe, and share, because I've got a story to finish. And baby, the next chapter, it's gonna change everything." Then I walked out into the night, the fire still burning behind my eyes, ready to find out just how far they were willing to go, and how far I was willing to fight back. 3 days after the fire, the motel room walls started closing in on me. The burnt smell still lived in my hair no matter how many showers I took, and every creak of the ceiling made me flinch like the flames had followed me there. I kept the curtains closed, the TV low, and my purse right beside me, like it was the only thing keeping me safe. I hadn't told nobody where I was. Not the detective. Not even Lorraine. I just couldn't. The world felt like a cracked mirror, and I didn't know who might be watching from the other side. That morning, as I was pouring motel coffee into a paper cup, I heard the sound of tires crunching gravel outside. Slow, careful, like somebody circling. I peeked through the blinds. A white sedan sat at the far end of the lot, engine running, tinted windows. No plates on the front, Something in my chest twisted tight. I tried to calm myself down. Maybe it's just another guest, I whispered. But my gut, the same gut that warned me before the fire, told me different. I sat back on the edge of the bed, clutching my coffee like it was holy water. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number again. Message. Still breathing? My cup slipped out my hand, hot coffee splattering across the floor. I grabbed the phone, staring at those two words. My mind spun. Who knew I was here? I hadn't told a soul. Then another text came in. Should have stayed gone. I froze. The air in that tiny room felt like ice. My first thought wasn't fear. It was anger. Because whoever this was thought I was still the same broken woman who used to beg a man to love her. They didn't know what that fire had done to me. I turned the phone off, threw it across the bed, and started packing. But as I zipped up my bag, headlights flashed across the window. The white sedan had moved closer. I ran to the bathroom and flipped the light off. My heart was beating so loud I could hear it echoing in my ears. Then, 3 knocks. Slow, heavy. I didn't move. The second set came faster, harder. I grabbed my purse, pulled the little pepper spray out of it, and held it tight. The knocking stopped. For a long second, there was nothing but silence. Then I heard a voice. Soft. Female. Miss Jennings? Please. I just need to talk. My breath caught. She knew my name. I crept closer to the door. Who is it? No answer. I pressed my eye to the peephole. The hallway light flickered, and I saw her. A woman, maybe mid-30s. Brown hair pulled into a low bun, wearing a beige coat. Her eyes were wide, scared even. She held something in her hand, a folder. This ain't the place, she whispered, looking over her shoulder. Please, open the door. I hesitated. My gut told me not to, but something in her face, desperation, maybe, made me turn the lock. She slipped inside quickly, shutting the door behind her. You're Martha, right? She said, voice trembling. I didn't know where else to find you. I stepped back, keeping my distance. Who are you? She set the folder on the bed. My name's Dana Wells. I used to work for the Langstons. Private secretary, before Mrs. Langston passed. My whole body went still. I didn't come to hurt you, she said. I came to warn you. I stared at her. About what? She opened the folder. Inside were photos, grainy security stills, copies of documents, even what looked like a check. They paid someone to do it, Dana said, to burn the house. It was supposed to look like an accident. They wanted the property back, and they wanted you scared enough to disappear. My stomach dropped. Who? She met my eyes. Elise Langston. She used her mother's old foundation account to pay a man named Carter Ellis. He's the same one who's been following you. I felt the room tilt. The white sedan, the text messages. It all made sense now. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Dana looked down, her hands shaking. Because I was part of it. Not the fire, but the setup. Elise told me to find your address weeks before the fire. She said you were a con artist, said you forged the will. I believed her. But when I saw what really happened, her voice cracked. I couldn't live with it. I walked closer, slow. So what do you want from me? She looked up, eyes full of guilt. To make it right, I kept copies of everything. Bank records, emails, enough to bury them. If you help me, I folded my arms. And what's stopping you from taking it to the police yourself? Because they've got friends there. Elise's husband works in county finance. They can bury reports, stall warrants. twist stories. You're the only one who can't be silenced. Not now. You've already survived too much. Her words hit hard. For a long time, I didn't speak. I just stared at those papers spread across the bed. Proof of everything I'd felt but couldn't prove. Finally, I said, if I do this, I'm not doing it for revenge. I'm doing it for her. For Mrs. Langston. Dana nodded. Then we'll start tonight. I'll drive. She turned toward the door, but before she could open it, we both froze. Out in the parking lot, that white sedan's headlights blinked on. Dana's face drained of color. He followed me here. The engine revved. I grabbed the folder, stuffed it into my bag, and whispered, "Back door." Now, we slipped into the hallway and out the service exit, running into the night air as the sedan door slammed behind us. Dana's car was parked a few feet away, an old blue Honda. We jumped in, hearts racing, as she sped down the empty road. I looked out the back window. The white sedan turned the corner, headlights cutting through the dark, following. I tightened my seatbelt and said softly, "You said you used to work for the Langstons?" "Yes." "Then you know how deep their roots go." She glanced at me, fear in her eyes. "Why?" I looked back at the lights behind us, drawing closer. "Because if we're going to take them down, we're gonna need more than proof." I turned forward, voice low, steady. "We're gonna need a plan." And as the taillights vanished into the dark Atlanta highway, the sound of sirens started to echo somewhere far behind, a reminder that the fire had only been the beginning. The dawn came gray and restless over Atlanta. The sky looked heavy, swollen with something that hadn't yet decided if it was rain or judgment. Dana and I hadn't slept. We'd driven all night, looping through back roads, until she parked behind an old Baptist church on the edge of town. It sat quiet and leaning, paint-chipped, cross-tilting a little toward heaven like it had carried too many prayers for too long. Inside, the pews still smelled like cedar and candle smoke. We sat near the altar with the folder spread open between us. Photos, records, signed checks, names, the whole truth staring back at us under the faint light. "You sure about this?" Dana whispered. Her eyes were red, trembling fingers clutching her coffee cup. "No," I said softly, "but I'm done being scared." Because fear had been my home for too long. In his hands, in their lies, in my own silence. And now, I was ready to burn that house down for good. Round 9, I called Lorraine. My heart pounded as I listened to the rings. She answered on the third one. "Child, where have you been?" She breathed. "I've been worried sick." "I'm all right," I said, though my voice cracked. "But I found something, Lorraine, something ugly, about your son, about Elise." There was a long silence, then a sigh, heavy as grief. "I know, baby," she whispered. "I knew the moment that fire started. Truth don't hide forever. It just waits for courage." I closed my eyes, tears slipping down. "I have proof now. Then use it. Don't let it die in the dark." Her voice shook but held steady strength. That same faith-filled steel she always carried. "Whatever happens, Martha, you walk tall. Because God didn't bring you through all this just to watch you crawl again." By noon, Dana and I met the only person I trusted with what we had, a journalist named Andre Lewis. He used to cover city politics, but after calling out corruption in county offices, he'd been blacklisted from every major paper in town. He worked now out of a one-room office above a pawn shop. When we arrived, he didn't look surprised, just tired. "You ladies look like trouble that finally found its reason," he said, motioning us in. I dropped the folder on his desk. We need this scene. Everywhere. Before they bury it. He flipped through the pages slowly, his brow tightening. This is real. It's real, I said, and dangerous. Dana nodded. They'll come for us once they know it's gone public. He leaned back, eyes narrowing. Then we better move fast. I got an online feed still watched by a few thousand truth-hungry folks. We go live at 7 tonight. 7? I echoed. That soon? He smiled faintly. News dies quick in this world. Gotta hit it before fear catches up. We spent the afternoon scanning documents, uploading files, writing statements. Every click felt like another heartbeat closer to freedom. But by 5, my nerves started buzzing again. Out the window, parked across the street, sat that same white sedan. Dana, I whispered. He's here. She looked, then cursed under her breath. We don't stop now. Not after all this. Andre pulled the blinds halfway. We stay inside until showtime. At 6:58, the feed went live. Andre's voice started steady. Good evening, Atlanta. Tonight's story isn't politics or business. It's justice. He turned to me. I faced the camera, palms sweating. My name is Martha Jennings, I said quietly. 3 months ago, I survived a house fire meant to erase me. What I didn't know then was, it wasn't an accident. It was a cover-up. I spoke the whole truth. The lies, the payments, the threats. I didn't cry, didn't shake. My voice held like a rope between two cliffs. When it ended, Andre closed the stream, exhaled long, and said, It's out there now. They can't undo it. Outside, thunder rolled, and then tires screeched. The white sedan jumped the curb, headlights blinding. A man got out, tall, built like someone who thought pain was a language. Stay here, Andre said, moving toward the door. But before he could reach it, the man kicked it open. The gun in his hand gleamed beneath the flickering light. Where is she? He barked. His voice was low, cold. Dana gasped. Carter. I stood up. My knees trembled, but I didn't back down. You don't scare me anymore. He aimed at me. You should have stayed gone. Something inside me, something long buried, rose like fire through my veins. No, I said, you should have. And before he could pull the trigger, Andre swung the heavy camera tripod straight into his arm. The gun clattered across the floor. Dana kicked it away, screaming, Enough, enough. Carter staggered back, blood on his cheek. He looked around and saw blue lights flashing through the rain-streaked window. Police sirens. Andre grinned grimly. Livestream wasn't the only thing going out tonight. By the time they cuffed Carter and took him away, rain had started falling hard, the kind that washes everything, even fear. The officers took our statements, bagged the evidence, and promised the DA's office would move fast. When it was all over, I stepped outside under the church awning. The air smelled of wet earth and lightning. Lorraine was there, umbrella in hand. She walked up slow, eyes full of tears and pride. You did it, baby, she whispered. You set the truth free. I nodded, rain mixing with my tears. But it still hurts. She smiled softly. Freedom always does it first. We stood there together, watching the dawn break open the storm. Behind us, Andre packed his gear. Dana called her sister for the first time in years. And me? I just stood in the rain, breathing like it was my first breath in forever. Because I finally understood something. The fire hadn't destroyed me. It had revealed me. Maybe that's what redemption looks like. Not spotless, not painless, but standing up in the rain when everything that tried to kill you has already failed. As I walked toward Lorraine's car, I heard her say, "You know, there's gonna be folks out there who need to hear this." I smiled faintly. "Then let's tell it right." She laughed, soft and proud. And when we drove off, Atlanta lights blinking behind us, I whispered to myself, if you're listening right now, please like, subscribe, and share. Tell somebody what survival sounds like, because you never know whose freedom it might light next. The wipers swept across the windshield, and the night finally cleared. Not an ending, just a beginning, born out of fire, truth, and grace.